Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Numerics with Nadia. In today's lesson, we're going to do kind of the opposite of what we did last time. So if you guys didn't watch last week's video, I would watch that one first. We went over how to find the percentage of a number, and we did that using two simple methods. We used equivalent fractions and a decimal multiplier. In today's lesson, we're going to learn how to calculate the percent of each value. And we're going to do this like we always do through lots and lots of practice problems. Before we get into any type of practice problems though, let's first go through and figure out how do we find the percentage. So we're going to learn this through one method, unlike our other video, which we had two. Here we only have one. And first we'll go over it by defining it in words, and then we'll do it through a lot of problems as well. So let's start out with our definition. It says that the percentage can be found by dividing the value by the total value and then multiplying the result by 100. So I know that this is a lot of words. What we'll also do on the bottom here is we'll write this out in a visual representation just so it's easier for us to digest and see the steps that we're doing. So like the definition says, we have our value divided by our total value. I'll just write total. And then we're going to multiply that by 100, and that will give us the percentage. And this little step on the bottom here, the shorthand notation of it, is how we're going to approach all of our practice problems. So now we'll get into our practice section of today's video. We're first off going to read the directions very carefully like we always do. And then once we read our directions, we're going to go through and kind of decode every problem. We're going to highlight the different parts, the value, the total, and what we're looking for, which for all of these questions will be the percentage. That way we can easily set up and solve our problem. But for now, we'll read the directions. The directions say to calculate the given percent of each value. Let's start off with our first practice problem of today's lesson. It says blank of 60 is 38.4. And we know that we're calculating the percent, right? That 38.4 that we're given, that is the value. That's what we're going to plug in for the value. The 60, that is our total. And then that little blank, well, that's the percentage, and that's what we're solving for. So I'll highlight that in green. That's our percent. And underneath it, I'll write a question mark just so we know that that is what we're looking for. So now that we've color-coded to kind of decode this problem, let's plug everything into the right places and solve. So we know our little formula that we have is the value over the total times 100, right? Our value we already know is 38.4, the total was 60, and we're going to multiply that by 100. So unless your teacher is okay with you using a calculator, you have to do that division by hand, and we know how to multiply and divide decimals, right? From the decimal playlist, I'll go ahead and link that video up top for you guys here. But we're going to do the 38.4 divided by 60. We know that we'll draw it out, and we'll put the decimal exactly where it is in our dividend up top on our division bar. So we know that 60 doesn't go into 3, 60 doesn't go into 38. So we're trying to see how many times does 60 go into 384. And 60 times 6 gives us 360. So we'll go through and we'll subtract out by 360. When we do that, we get 24 left over. If I bring down a 0, we get 240. And we know that 6 times 4 is 24, right? So 60 times 4 would be 240. And we get 0.64 when we do our division. Now our last step here is we have to do the 0.64 times 100. And when you multiply a decimal times 100, it's like moving it to the right 2 decimal places. So when we do that here, we end up getting 64%. And we know that we've done everything correctly because we needed a percentage as our answer, right? So if you guys feel comfortable, continue along with me, follow along as we do the next practice problems. If not, go ahead and repeat how we defined our method and our first practice problem before getting into the rest of them because I'm going to go through them at a little bit of a quicker pace. All right, you guys, let's get into our second practice problem for today's video. For number 2, it says blank of 2 equals 1.84. So again, same steps as our last problem. We're going to go through here and we're going to highlight our total, our value, and what we're looking for. So let's go through and decode that here. We know that the blank, well, that's our percentage. That's what we're solving for. The 2 is our total and the 1.84 is our value. So now that we've decoded, let's put it all up into that equation. We remember our equation is the value over the total times 100. So our value here is 1.84 divided by the 2 times 100. And just like in our first example, we're going to do that division on the side here. I want us to know how to divide decimals regardless of if your teacher allows you to use a calculator or not. And this one is easier than the last one. So we'll do the 1.84 divided by 2 on the side here. The denominator is what we're dividing by, so that goes outside the bar, and the 1.84 goes under the bar. We know that 2 doesn't go into 1, so we'll put our 0 in our decimal point, but 2 goes into 18 9 times. We subtract out, we get 0, and then we know 2 goes into 4 2 times, so we end up getting 0.92 as our answer when we divide. But remember, we have to go back through and we have to look at our little equation, and our next step is that we have to multiply that 0.92 times 100, right? So again, we're multiplying a decimal by 100, and that just means that we move our decimal place to the right 2 spaces, and when we do that, we get 92% as our answer for number 2. Now let's get into our third practice problem for today's video. For number 3, we have blank of 8 equals 5.84. And just like in number 2, we're going to go through here and we're going to decode everything. We're going to highlight it all. First off, we have that blank. That blank represents the percentage. That we don't know, so that's what we're solving for. I'll write the question mark. Then the 8, well, that's our total value. We'll highlight that in yellow. And then for the 5.84, well, that's the value we're given. So now we'll go through here and plug this in. We know that we have value over the total times 100, and our value here is 5.84. The total was 8, so it'd be 5.84 over 8 times 100. So first off, we need to do our division, right? We have 5.84 divided by 8, so we'll go ahead and do that on the side. We know that 8 doesn't go into 5, but 8 goes into 58 7 times, so we'll go ahead and put our decimal in as well. We know 8 times 7 is 56. When we subtract out, we get 2. We know 8 goes into 24 3 times, so the decimal we get is 0.73. And remember, we have to multiply this by 100. And when I do that, again, we move to the right 2 decimal places. So that 0.73 times 100 turns into 73%. And that would be our answer for number 3. All right, you guys, last practice problem for today's lesson. For number 4, we have blank of 40 equals 4.8. So same as before, we're going to go through, highlight, and decode. That blank is our percentage. That's our question mark here. That's what we're solving for. We don't know that. The 40, well, that's our total. So we'll go ahead and highlight that one as well. And then the 4.8, well, that's our value. So we'll go ahead and highlight and label that one. Now we'll go through and plug everything in. We have our equation. Our equation is the value over the total times 100. We know our value here is 4.8. The total is 40. And then we'll multiply that by 100. So we have 4.8 over 40 times 100. And we'll go through and do the division on the side here. We're dividing by 40, so that goes on the outside. And we know that 40, well, that doesn't go into 4, right? So we'll go ahead and draw a 0 up there. We know that 40, well, that goes into 48 one time. And when we subtract out, we get 8 left over. We'll bring down a 0. And we know that 40, well, that goes into 80 twice. And then when we subtract out by 80, we're all zeroed out. So we get 0.12, and we still have to multiply this by 100. And when we multiply by 100, we move to the right 2 units. and we get 12% as our answer for number 4. All right, you guys, that is it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Great job today. Please feel free to like this video if you enjoyed it. Comment any questions you have down below or any other videos you would like to see. Share this video with a friend and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys next time.